Check, check. Mic check 1, 2. I am freshly out of a mosh retirement with this bold statement and an ice-cooled, electrolyte-filled beverage. I welcome you back to another Music Monday. My name is Milika Cigrulu. Welcome. It is insanely hot in Germany right now. It's end of June. And we're hovering around the 40-degree mark Celsius, that is. And that's been going on for the past week. I don't know what that would be in Fahrenheit. Probably around 500 or something. But yeah, just jokes aside, it is insanely hot. It is, in fact, so hot that the regional water supplies are sort of in dismay, and we're all asked to use less water. Enter Jeff Bezos saying that we all should, consume less water, so AI could be powered with that same water. But anyway, yeah, it's been insanely hot for the last week. The week before it was sort of manageable. It was like normal summer in a way. I mean, especially considering it's June. But yet, I still managed to visit 2 shows, one each week, which would be Basement and A Day to Remember, which we'll come to that back in a second. But yeah, it's a fun time. These sort of shows sort of pop up. Then we buy tickets half a year before it happens, and then I'm sort of reminded last minute that there are shows that I have to attend because I paid money for them. But it's great fun, and it has reminded me of why I have loved going to shows and why live shows are so important, even the bigger ones. There's obviously an argument to be made that within the local community and the local DIY community, there needs to be more eyes on that, and there needs to be more support for that. And I mean, I'm a part of that scene myself as someone who attends these shows and has a lot of friends in these bands, but also as someone who is planning to play shows myself. So it's important to keep the scene alive and support your local bands too, as much as the bigger ones. But yeah, so show number 1, which was Basement, when I've seen that they are touring as a headliner, I immediately bought a set of tickets for myself and family, brothers-in-laws, that is, especially. We attend a lot of shows together, which is pretty cool, pretty fun. But yeah, like Basement, I got into way back. That would have been around their first album, which I didn't know at the time, because the way I got into the band was through some friends that they did a sort of DIY label kind of situation, and they gave away a download link for that album. So I snatched that, downloaded it, and not really being into the whole post-hardcore thing at the time, that album really spoke to me in a very different way, because the sound was different, the energy was different, but it was raw, it was catchy. And even though production wise there has been a clear sort of progression from that, I think the energy from the band remains the same throughout their career, which from what I understand, they have been on several hiatuses in between the years. I really like that album, and I have a very special sort of bond to it, which the name of the album is I Wish I Could Stay Here. and that was released back in 2011. So it's been a minute, and they have released, I believe, 4 albums since. And yeah, it's just really, really fun music that is still deep and shares a lot of emotion. And I would have loved to watch these guys play back in the day. Never got the chance to, because that's a type of band where, with each sing along there would have been at least three layers of people on top of each other during these sing-alongs in these in these shows. But when they last played in Germany, I believe when I saw it was they were opening for Bring Me the Horizon. That was still like they were playing in Frankfurt, and for some reason I didn't. For some reason I didn't go because I wasn't heavily into Bring Me the Horizon at the time, and the prices were kind of high. So I said, well, I'm not going there, which I should have, because Bring Me the Horizon is quite frankly a pretty great band, especially considering where they came from. But yeah, Basement opened for them. Tickets were a little too pricey for me at the time, so I didn't go. And then I think the last year or so they were opening for Knock Loose of all bands, and but that wasn't in the region here. That was, I think, the closest was Cologne, and missed them there. And I think like ever since then they have played a few festivals here and there, but then they announced a show in Wiesbaden in Schlachthof, which is pretty legendary venue, especially when you're from the area here. That's one of the bigger venues, and has a deep history with the alternative scene, and also like very politically active. So very important to the whole alternative scene around here. Also, thank God for DaVinci Resolve's voice editing capabilities that allows me to take a sip of liquid without having to pause every time I do. But yeah, the Basement show, like I said, was in Wiesbaden, and then we went there, 3 people, met up with one friend, met up with another, met up with 2 people, with 2 friends that were already there that I didn't know of, and then 2 additional came too. So we went there, 3 people, ended up being a group of 9, and not mentioning a handful of people that I know were there that I didn't meet that night. But I think it's always very nice to meet people that you don't really get to see regularly, whether that's people just living a few cities away, or parents being on their night out. But it's cool to meet up anyway. And to my surprise, there were a lot of young people in the audience, which surprised me a lot, to be honest, when I went there. But yeah, apparently with a lot of bands, also Basement, have been sort of been discovered by the younger generation on TikTok, which seems, but I mean, you can say about TikTok what you want, and I'm not on there because it's just not my type of thing. But the more people, or let me say it that way, if people discover music on there that is valuable, at least in my eyes, that's great. However, they may discover that group, because I mean, I myself didn't discover the group by, I don't know, going to an underground show and seeing them and whatnot, but I got introduced by them by a download link. So I think everything is fair when that leads to people attending shows and, enjoying good music. So no complaints there. But yeah, I think I got sort of sucked into the vortex with all these young flippers being very energetic, and so I got into the pit after not really attending for a few years. I mean, I've been in there for a short time here and there on several occasions, but never really with the intention of staying there and being involved for the whole show. It was nice. It was fun. Also, it was just shortly after, or just shortly before, I've thrown my back out with a little bit of back pain leading up to it during the show. But well, who would have thought being hot and being in motion sort of helps with your back pain. I mean, in moderation. That is, in moderation. But yeah, it was very fun. Also, the opening band. Now I'm blanking on the name, but it was a young band with doing the whole shoegazer thing. Glare was the name of the band. I got it. And yeah, they were a shoegaze band, which I'm not really in that genre all that much. Sort of comes up as an influence with different bands that I listen to. But yeah, they were fun, although it was a little too, not necessarily samey, but the last song they played was, they had their slow build up, and then they had this huge chorus kind of situation. It was very fun because the song was very dynamic, and I would have wished for a little more of that, I guess, through their set. So the energy would have exploded a little bit here and there, but still, regardless, fun band, cool opener. Yeah, also it came to know after the show that one of Basement's guitars actually lived in Wiesbaden for a short period of time. So them actually being knowledgeable about the place and about the local scene is kind of cool, and makes me appreciate them in a different type of way. I guess they were sharing the same sort of experience in that place. But yeah, all in all, very good show. Sound was great. They played a very somewhat short set with all the hits, all the the best of set lists, with a handful of songs from the new album they just released, which is Wired, which I still have to listen to in full. I've listened to a bunch of songs, and very great. And I think it was very nice to have a show where have the opener play their set, short break, and then the headliner comes around, and the energy level stays high. They do mellow up for a little bit, and then just continue to give you an exciting show, which I definitely appreciate a lot, considering the last few shows that I've been to were very long, with up to 3 bands on the bill, and to be honest, that's just exhausting at some point. So getting out of the concert and the sun still being up was kind of a nice change of pace, which led to being home fairly early and being in bed in a orderly fashion, as I am an old man when it comes to my bedtime. Anyway, this is in stark contrast to the other show that we attended this week, actually, which was A Day to Remember, which we weren't there for them necessarily. They were nice bonus, but we were there for the opening act, which is Don Broco, and that show happened in Cologne. Actually, it was the Palladium in Cologne, Cologne, which that location, we went there, I think, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. We went there to see Sleep Token, and it's a big old, warehouse sort of vibe in there. It has a balcony too, and with the Sleep Token show, we were way in the back, and the sound was pretty terrible, to be honest. It was all sub, and then snare and cymbals once they hit. So I was a little worried, to be honest, when it came to that show. Also, with the temperatures being this hot, and me sort of forgetting about the show, I was reminded that day when we were talking about pickup and driving that we had to not just go to Frankfurt, but we had to go at this, well, 2.5 3 hour drive to Cologne. So we went there, came. It was insanely hot already at that time, but luckily when we got into the venue, it was air conditioned. It was pretty cool. They even have air conditioning in the venue itself, which is surprising, which is not something you get at least in Germany every day. But we went right into the front this time around because we were, as I mentioned, we were there for the opening act, which is Don Broco. They delivered a pretty kick-ass show. The sound was incredible, despite our last sort of encounter with the venue. The sound was pretty cool, pretty good. I forgot to bring hearing protection, and was still great. So it was not super loud, not super overpowering, but pretty clear, punchy, especially with the band going from 6 to 7 strings on the new album, which if you don't know Don Broco, they are, I don't want to say like a comedy band, but I think like with one of their albums, they had this art direction going, and especially in the music videos with a very like comedic touch to it. But the songs themselves are super catchy, super fun, and I would say one of their standout party tricks in their arsenal is their drummer, who also is doing a lot of vocals in their songs. It's this very dynamic back and forth between the actual frontman and their drummer on vocals. Very catchy, energetic riffs, and then the bass player has to get a shout out on this for this show, especially because they opened up with one of their newer songs, which on their last album they went a little bit with the nu metal revival, I would say. So it's a lot darker and it's low tuned, and he came onto stage with a dingwall, and it sounded pretty incredible with their sound, especially just being one guitar band. I think it shows how important the bass sound and the bass player is within the band like that. He grooves and he supports the riffs and the guitar sound in such an amazing way. But yeah, all in all, very energetic band. And it's funny how us seeing that band open up for Mike Shinoda back in, I don't know what year it was. It was on the post-traumatic tour, and Don Broco were opening up. And ever since then, they have become sort of a staple in our family group, all-time favorite bands, pretty much. It all comes down to that one show. And we've been fans ever since, and lots of shows. And it's always fun. So that makes it really easy to get engaged, because the songs are definitely made for to have a good time on the show. So yeah, they make it really easy to bounce around, and they're very engaging with the crowd, and the songs have a lot of sing along potential, and have some very important breaks in between, parts to have a few seconds to open up the pit, and then everyone comes in again, and everyone beats the shit out of each other. So yeah, good time to be had. Very good time to be had. Each and every time. Thinking back on when we first saw them after the Mike Shinoda gig, which that's where we just sort of took it in. But then the second time we saw them was in the old Zoom location, which it was in like central Frankfurt area, which is no more. That building has been closed down ever since. And a rather small venue, also with a bar and all that kind of stuff. Like it was the venue itself was pretty cool, but also like, so I went into the pit. Now the area itself is not pretty big, but then also it was like metal flooring. So the moment someone's beverage hit the floor, it was pretty slippery, but still fun. And then, ever since then, they just grew, and they had bigger. They had a co-headlining tour in the new Zoom venue, which used to be the Cocoon Club in Frankfurt. And whoever is into electronic music, that venue, the Cocoon Club, used to be Sven Faith's own personal club. So it's kind of historic in the sense of electronic music in Frankfurt, or overall. And yeah, just very interesting how they built that out as a concert venue when it was originally just like a club, like a proper club. It was very the floor wasn't all flat, like many stairs and gaps and all that kind of stuff. And they somehow made it into a venue which has quickly become my personal favorite, to be honest, for several reasons. Like the size is big enough where a sold out show feels big, but still sort of intimate. Also, the room, if you would imagine it as a big square, the stage itself is in the corner. So it kind of opens up to both sides. And as in opening up, also like you have access from like both sides. You can go in and out from both sides. And if you have to, I don't know, like get out, take a breather, go to the bathroom, go to the bar, you have the opportunity. You have the opportunity to leave quickly, which gave me definitely a sort of a sense of security, especially coming back from the pandemic and all that sort of stuff. So being in a closed environment still gave me a lot of anxiety at the beginning, and that venue just solved that in a very cool way where it doesn't feel like super pressured, but also the sound is incredible. So maybe it's because of the size, or maybe because it was like super well designed to accommodate bass heavy electronic music. But everything from like the more, I guess, catchy stuff in Don Broco, all to we have seen a pop show there too, Diddy Freyr, I think his name was. That was super cool and clean, like clean sounding. All to, we have seen Spirit Box in there too. So like everything from EastEnder to Double Drop B, or whatever the case was, everything sounds insanely clear in that room. So in the handful of shows I've seen there since it's been opening up, it has opened up, I never had a show with bad sound. So all in all, very great venue. Lastly, day to remember. As I said, we went there. We went to that show to see Don Broco, but having A Day to Remember, sort of our generation's legacy band, sort of, if you want to say so, has been pretty cool. They have put on a great show, great production value with everything. Last time I saw them, or first and last time I saw them, was on the Southside Festival 2017, which, the festivals are always a different sort of experience because you can hop in and out with bands and different stages, however you like. But even then was pretty fun experience. And now seeing how professional these guys are, even though like the music may not be my main sort of thing, but hats off to those guys to coming from the DIY scene to Warped Tour and coming up, and now being such a professional band and being consistent throughout the years. Also, very fun fact, or fun thing they did is having a bunch of fans on stage during the whole show. So it was like the backdrop, and then they would stay behind the drum riser essentially, and it would just rock out throughout the whole show. Pretty cool, fun experience for hardcore fans for sure. And everything from confetti to like big old beach balls and all that kind of stuff, with all the sing-alongs, from their greatest hits sort of catalog, and all of the breakdowns. Which, blast from the past for sure. Very fun to have that and have a little kickback to 2000 to the late 2000s and early 2010s. Yeah, definitely had a few flashbacks to funny, silly situations with friends back in the day for sure. So yeah, would definitely recommend it, even though like it was hot as hell, but the air conditioning inside of the venue like made it possible for everyone not to just pass out, which I will say, in the pit I had to cross through the pit a few times, and or I was also in the pit a few times with A Day to Remember, and it was insanely hot there. So yeah, everyone go to shows, but remember to drink a lot of water, especially in when you're getting involved and you're getting sweaty. Yeah, take good care of yourselves. Bringing this to an end, check out Basement's new album Wired. Check out their debut album I Wish I Could Stay Here. Same thing for Don Broco. Check out their new album. Cellophane was the first single off of that and was a very great introduction to the new darker sound, but still with that same catchiness that you have on older songs or older hits like Pretty. Between Pretty and Cellophane, you have like, if you hear the song, when you hear the songs back to back, you can kind of make out what their sound is, and still have like these different stylistic choices, and you'll be able to appreciate them. I'm very sure. So thank you again for tuning in. I've been Milika Gigliolu, and I will hear you in the next one. Peace.